Thank you, Laska. I'd like to thank Minister Sherlock for taking this adjournment debate this evening, which concerns an individual who resides in a HSE-funded residential service in John O'God service that cares for people with an intellectual disability. This person has a very high physical and intellectual disability with very high care needs associated. For as long as the family can remember, this person was in receipt of a medical card. They went into the care of the John O'God services in 2002, so 12 years ago. And in 2012, they got a letter, or a review letter was issued on the 10th of February 2012 to inform that this person, that their card was up for review on the 31st of May of 2012. This letter advised the individual would need to complete a review form to PCRS by the 1st of May 2012 to ensure the application would be processed before their eligibility expired. However, PCRS have no record of a review form being returned to the office prior to 2012. A further letter was issued to the individual on May the 9th, 2012, advising that if they wish to have their medical card eligibility extended, they would need to complete the review form. The letter stated clearly that failure to return the review form would result in the person's medical card being cancelled, which is what subsequently happened. The medical card was cancelled in 2012. This person's family came to me in 2014 and said, we don't have a medical card. This person has had their medical card removed. So I began to make inquiries as to why a medical card was reviewed. They are the closest, they are the next of kin, but they never heard anything about this letter. They were not aware that the letter had been sent out in 2012. They weren't aware of any of the facts. All they knew was that her medical card had been removed. And I have the documents of all the dates of all the letters that the medical card reviews had sent out. But it was a member of staff in this service that informed the family, well, actually, that member of the family don't have a medical card anymore, or that they don't have it. So, Minister, I find this very troubling that a HSE-funded residential service can unilaterally decide to allow a medical card to expire without notifying the family in the first instance or seeking their consent. What if the family had decided to move this person from the service and they no longer had a medical card? What if the individual needed to be sent to a hospital and they no longer had this medical card? So on behalf of the family, I queried the matter locally, as well as I said with the medical card section. And I was informed by letter that until mid-2014, no resident living at the service had their own medical card. I find that extremely strange, and it was further clarified when I met with the head of the service and family members, and they said, well, actually, now, they have only come into the position in recent months, but they said, well, we thought it. But a person living here doesn't need a medical card. We employ our own GP, and we employ, so they don't need the service. Now, to me, if somebody is entitled to a medical card, and they're living in a congregated setting, which, as we all know, will be a thing of the past in a few years, you know, why do they not all have medical cards? Why would somebody volunteer to pay for a GP service if they're already entitled to a free service? And who is paying for it? This person would, as I said, have high medical needs. Who has been paying for the medicines? And why would a service that's HSE funded, why would you do that if you're entitled to a medical card? So there are many families involved in the day-to-day care, as well as big and small decisions regarding their family members living in residential services. They deserve to be, at the very least, informed about medical cards and about care for their loved one. And,
your time, Senator.
Thank you. So, as I said, I find the situation very troubling, and I believe that there is a serious lack of transparency regarding this case.
Thank you. Minister.
Okay. First of all, let me acknowledge Senator Moran's raising of this issue. I'm going to be quite frank, Chair, and say that I've been provided with a script, and I'm taking it on behalf of Minister Lynch, who, as I've stated previously, is in the Dáil at the moment, and I'm not going to deliver the script that has been provided to me. So could I ask, please, that it would be checked against delivery, because it is not the script that I would necessarily give myself Okay. Um, the issue that has been raised by the senator, I don't want to say that it's a complete outlier in relation to, cases that have been presented to the HSE. Um, but it is a very exceptional set of circumstances, and one which I think anybody with any degree of fairness would acknowledge that the person, the client, wasn't dealt with properly. There was a systems breakdown, and I think it is an obvious thing to say that that was the case. So in relation to the first half of the script that I've been, given, if you will, and I just look, I don't want to say that there is no role for the Minister for Health in this particular case, but I will speak to the specific case in relation to the script that I have. I acknowledge, I would absolutely acknowledge the points that are being made by Senator Moran in relation to the fact that between 2012 and now, arguably, that person was essentially locked out of the system through no fault of their own. And the question now arises as to why that happened. And I will just say that I am aware that the HSE has a very structured protocol in place for the review process, and that every effort is made for ongoing engagement with clients during this process. Now, that obviously didn't happen in this case. But each month, the HSE analyses the medical card register to identify those medical cards and GP visit cards which are scheduled for review within 3 months. That obviously didn't happen in this instance, and all customers scheduled for review are notified, and a balance of either full reviews or self-assessments is conducted. That didn't happen either in this instance. In this case, the HSE has confirmed that the medical card lapsed. Okay. However, the person's medical needs were provided by a resident doctor, and the Senator has already stated that, and any expenses arising from medical appointments or drugs were funded by the service provider. Okay. I understand from the HSE that an application has been made, the Senator has already stated that, to reinstate the person's medical card in 2014. Minister Lynch has asked the HSE to remind service providers of their responsibility to ensure that such matters are attended to promptly in respect of residents within their care. I don't have an answer for the Senator in relation to what happened in this particular case. But I do believe, and I would fully support the Senator's wish, if you will, or plea, or advocacy on behalf of the client, that there would be a review of the structures that led to a situation whereby that person was not in receipt of a medical card if that person was so entitled to for a particular period of time. And if I understand the Senator correctly, she states that the medical card was cancelled, but the family themselves were not informed or were not in receipt of any documentation to that effect. And I think myself, if I can be frank about it, I think the very least that the person is entitled to in this instance is some sort of an acknowledgement of that fact. But I think we all, as Oireachtas members, and I don't want to lay blame on any particular entity, but there have been circumstances where documentation has, and I've experienced it myself, I have a first-hand experience of this myself, where documentation has slipped through the cracks. And I do know that there have been quite a number of Oireachtas members who have actually sent in documentation to the service on behalf of various clients or constituents, and it has gotten lost somewhere in the ether. I would be confident, though, that into the future, given today's announcement, for instance, and I do know from my own experience that service has been cleaned up considerably, to be fair to the HSE. But I think in the case that the Senator raises, I think it is worthy of a further examination. I would hope, though, that the most positive outcome would be an assurance that the person's medical card will be restored if that person is so entitled, which it seems to me to be the case that is so, but also that the medical needs, most importantly, are being taken care of.
Minister.
If I could, and I would ask just for your indulgence to this, I have no problem, Minister, with the HSE in this instance. They have provided me with every date and every piece of correspondence that's gone out. My argument is that the service, who is funded by the HSE, the service did not inform the family. No communication with them at all, that the medical card was up for review. They let it lapse, but what they've said to us now, or what they've said to me when I met with them, was that, but they didn't need the medical card. We're providing the GP in our service. But why would you, my argument is, why would you do that when everybody's strapped for cash and they're all looking for funding? Why would you volunteer to pay out of your own pocket for medication when that person is entitled to it for free on a medical card? Now, I've since been told that the medical card was that they'd applied for it. I actually checked with the medical cards office last week, and they don't have a record of anything being applied for in the last year. So
Senator.
I think there's a huge, as I said before, a lack of transparency in this whole thing. I mean, when we're looking and money is being provided to this service, they should be accountable for all of this. And surely somebody must have said, sorry, why have you got, and there are 123 people living in this residential service. So does that mean that 123 people had no medical cards and had doctor services being paid for when they were all entitled to free treatment?
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next.
The Senator's indulgence, I beg your indulgence, just to acknowledge that point.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Minister. So much, Senator Rooney.
Well,
I think it's very important.
And I just want to acknowledge the distinction that is made. I do, just for the record of the House, I do want to acknowledge the distinction that the, that the Senator has made. At the same time, historically, there is a situation where the client will say the client for the, I know it's an awful word, the person, I'm sorry if I'm using inappropriate terminology, I don't mean to offend anybody, but the person in question, there needs to be a system or a protocol put in place, and I think that's the essential point that is being made by the Senator.
Where family members are kept informed.
Where family members are kept informed, and that's the key here. And I think from a HSE perspective, yes, they generate lots of correspondence, but I think in this instance, I would say that there is a certain responsibility there as well on the HSE. That would be my view for what it's worth. But I will relay this to Minister Lynch on behalf of the Senator.
Thank you very much, Minister.